reviving the abandoned fox beauty with food. Her carnal loyalty is mine and mine alone. The wanderer and the starving spirit. The mountain path wound through forgotten places where moss claimed stone and silence held dominion. Darian Reed walked these paths with the ease of someone who belonged nowhere and everywhere, his pack heavy with herbs, his cooking pot gleaming dully in the fading light. He had no home, no clan, no ambition beyond the next village that might need healing or the next meal he could perfect. The shrine appeared suddenly, a crumbling structure overtaken by vines, its offering bowls long empty and cracked. Most would pass it without a second glance. Darian paused, sensing something beyond the decay, a presence, faint and fading like dying embers. Then he saw her. She lay collapsed against the weathered steps, her form barely distinguishable from the shadows. But even diminished, there was something otherworldly about her. The curve of her shoulders, the silver-white hair tangled with dirt and leaves, the translucent quality of skin that had once known divine radiance. A spirit, a forgotten one. Darian approached slowly, kneeling beside her. She didn't move, her breathing shallow and labored. Her garments, once elegant robes, hung in tatters. Through the grime, he could see the remnants of ethereal beauty, high cheekbones, delicate features, but hollowed by starvation. Her eyes flickered open, pale amber, wild and distrustful, more animal than divine. "Stay back," she rasped, attempting to crawl away, her movements weak and uncoordinated. "I won't harm you," Darian said softly, already unpacking his supplies. "You're starving. Let me help." "Lies," her voice cracked. "Humans always lie." He didn't argue. Instead, he built a small fire and began preparing food, his hands moving with practiced grace. The scent of herbs and cooking rice filled the air, and he noticed how her gaze fixed on the pot, hunger warring with fear in those feral eyes. "My name is Darian," he said quietly, stirring the meal, "and I'm not asking anything in return."
The first offering. The swan spirit watched him with the intensity of a cornered creature, every muscle tensed for flight despite her weakness. Darian continued cooking, unbothered by her scrutiny, adding dried mushrooms and wild greens to the simple porridge. The aroma grew richer, more complex, a humble meal elevated by care and skill. "What are you?" Silvana whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. "Just a wanderer who cooks." He ladled the porridge into a wooden bowl, then set it on the shrine steps between them, making no move to approach closer. "This will help. It's made with moonbell root, good for restoring strength to those who've gone without." She stared at the offering, trembling. "Why?" "Because you're hungry and I have food." His answer was simple, without pretense. Centuries of betrayal had taught Silvana to expect cruelty disguised as kindness, to anticipate the hidden cost of every gift. But this man's eyes held no calculation, no greed, only a quiet compassion that made her throat tighten. Slowly, painfully, she reached for the bowl. The first taste made her gasp. Warmth flooded through her, not just physical heat, but something deeper. The meal carried intention, genuine care woven into every ingredient. It had been so long since anyone had offered her anything without demanding worship, without seeking favor. Tears slipped down her dirt-stained cheeks as she ate, each spoonful restoring a fragment of what she'd lost. The numbness in her limbs eased, the fog in her mind cleared slightly, and with each bite she felt a crack form in the walls she'd built around her shattered heart. Darian watched her devour the meal, then quietly prepared another portion. "More?" she asked, vulnerability replacing suspicion. "As much as you need." He handed her the second bowl, and when their fingers brushed, Silvana felt a spark, not of magic, but of something more dangerous, connection. That night, he slept near the shrine entrance, while she remained by the dying fire, stronger but still weak, watching him with newfound curiosity. For the first time in centuries, she didn't feel completely alone.
Firelight Confessions. 3 nights passed, and with each meal Darian prepared, Sylvana grew stronger. Her silver hair regained its luster, falling in soft waves past her shoulders. Her skin took on a pearlescent glow, though faint traces of her suffering remained in the cautious way she moved. On the 4th evening, as Darian cooked a more elaborate dish, wild herbs, mountain vegetables, and tender fish from a nearby stream, she finally spoke beyond single-word answers. "I was the swan of the northern shrine," Sylvana said quietly, sitting closer to him than before. "Humans came seeking blessings, good harvests, healthy children, protection from winter storms. I gave freely, believing in their devotion." Darian stirred the pot, listening without judgment. "But devotion fades. They stopped coming when I couldn't grant miracles on demand. When drought came despite my prayers, when children still fell ill, they called me false, useless." Her voice hardened. "The last priest tried to bind me to his will, to force blessings through rituals and pain. I fled before he could complete the binding, and I've been fading ever since." "Spirits need recognition to survive," Darian said, understanding the cruel truth. "Without it, you starve." "Yes." She looked at him with those luminous amber eyes, now clear and intense. "You're the first person in 200 years to see me as worthy of basic kindness, not as a tool, not as a bargaining chip, just worthy." He served the meal, their shoulders nearly touching as they sat together. "You are worthy, with or without magic, with or without power, you matter." The simplicity of his words shattered something inside her. Sylvana reached out, her hand trembling as she touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw with wondering fingers. "Why do you wander alone?" she asked softly. "The same reason you hide," Darian answered, leaning into her touch. "The world expects things, performance, usefulness. I'd rather just be." Their eyes met, and the air between them thickened with unspoken recognition. 2 abandoned souls finding warmth in each other's presence. The awakening of devotion. The transformation was complete. Sylvana stood in full radiance now, ethereal beauty restored, power humming beneath her skin. But instead of leaving, instead of seeking a new shrine or reclaiming her divine status, she remained with Darian, drawn to him by something deeper than gratitude. It began with small touches, her hand lingering on his as he passed her food, the way she'd lean against him while they talked into the night. The casual intimacy of 2 people who'd found sanctuary in each other. One evening, as rain drummed against the shrine roof and firelight cast dancing shadows, Sylvana moved closer until she was pressed against his side. "I choose you," she whispered, her breath warm against his neck, "not because of obligation or magic, because you fed me when I was forgotten, because you saw me when I was invisible." Darian turned to face her, seeing the fierce devotion burning in her eyes, a loyalty freely given, more powerful than any binding spell. "Sylvana." She silenced him with a kiss, tender at first, then deepening with the hunger of someone who'd been starved of affection for centuries. He responded, pulling her closer, his hands tangling in her silver hair as the world outside faded to nothing. Their intimacy unfolded slowly, reverently, each touch an affirmation, each whispered word a vow. Sylvana gave herself completely, not as a spirit granting favors, but as a woman claiming what she desired.
Darien worshipped her with the same care he'd shown in every meal, treating her with tenderness and passion intertwined. Beneath the abandoned shrine, they created their own sacred space, where devotion wasn't demanded but offered, where power dynamics dissolved into equal surrender. When they lay tangled together afterward, Sylvana traced patterns on his chest, her amber eyes reflecting firelight. "I'm yours," she murmured, "in every way that matters." "And I'm yours," he replied, kissing her forehead, "for as long as you'll have me." Outside, the rain continued, washing away the old world and leaving only their shared beginning.
Belonging to each other. Travel traveled strangely in the spirit world. Within weeks, other entities sensed Sylvana's return, not the broken, starving creature she'd become, but a fully restored swan deity radiating power and fierce contentment. Representatives came from shrines across the region, offering positions, worship, devotion. Village elders arrived with gifts, begging her to bless their lands. Even the priest who'd once tried to bind her sent emissaries with desperate apologies and promises of proper reverence. Sylvana refused them all. She stood beside Darien in the clearing they'd made their home, her hand clasped firmly in his, her voice unwavering. "I belong to no shrine. I accept no contracts. I am bound only to the man who fed me when the world had forgotten I existed." The other spirits were scandalized. The humans were confused. But Sylvana remained unmoved, her loyalty absolute. Darien continued his wandering, but now Sylvana walked beside him, her presence ensuring safe passage through mountain and forest. He cooked his meals, she tended his herbs, and together they helped villages in quiet ways, not through miracles, but through kindness and practical care. At night, they would make camp beneath stars, and Sylvana would curl into Darien's embrace with a contentment she'd never known in all her divine centuries. This was belonging. This was home. "I was revered by thousands," she whispered one evening, her head resting on his chest. "But I was never truly seen until you looked at me with hunger in your eyes and offered me a bowl of porridge." Darien laughed softly, stroking her hair. "And I wandered alone for years until a half-starved swan spirit taught me that being needed isn't the same as being chosen." They kissed beneath the moonlight, two souls who'd found each other in abandonment and created something neither prayers nor magic could replicate. A bond forged in freedom, sustained by choice, and deepened by the fierce, carnal loyalty of two hearts that had chosen to belong only to each other. The world could have its shrines and contracts. They had something infinitely more precious: each other. Lessons from Nourishing the Forgotten Swan Spirit. True devotion cannot be commanded through ritual or obligation, but blossoms freely when kindness is offered without expectation of return. The most powerful bonds form not in moments of strength and glory, but in vulnerability, when one soul sees another's worth despite the world's blindness. Love that is chosen, freely, fiercely, without the chains of duty or magic, becomes an unbreakable sanctuary where two people belong entirely to each other. The world could have its shrines and contracts. They had something infinitely more precious: each other.